Imagine you are in a place in the world where space is closer to you than other people. This is not a metaphor or an exaggerated expression created to produce dramatic effect. This is a real geographical reality that exists on our planet right now. Welcome to the loneliest point on Earth. This place is called Point Nemo, widely known as the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, and often described as the most remote location on Earth. Situated deep in the vast emptiness of the South Pacific Ocean, Point Nemo represents the absolute limit of geographic isolation. At this precise coordinate, the nearest pieces of land lie more than 2,688 kilometers away in every direction, meaning that no matter which direction you travel, you would need to cross thousands of kilometers of open ocean before encountering even the smallest island or rocky coastline. To truly grasp this distance, imagine flying from Paris to Cairo or from London to Moscow and still not reaching land. That is the scale of remoteness we are talking about. However, the story of Point Nemo goes far beyond geography and distance, because this lonely location has evolved into something far stranger and more fascinating than anyone could have imagined. Over time, it has become the world's unofficial spacecraft graveyard, a silent resting place for satellites, space stations, and fragments of humanity's technological ambitions. To fully understand why Point Nemo is so extraordinary, we first need to explore the concept of a pole of inaccessibility and why such locations exist in the first place. While most people are familiar with the North Pole and South Pole as the geographic extremes of Earth, poles of inaccessibility are defined not by latitude or longitude, but by how difficult they are to reach from civilization. A pole of inaccessibility is the point within a region that is farthest from its boundaries. There are continental poles of inaccessibility located deep within land masses, desert poles located within vast arid regions, and oceanic poles located in the middle of the largest bodies of water. These points are defined by mathematics and geography rather than physical landmarks, meaning they are often invisible locations that exist purely as coordinates. The oceanic pole of inaccessibility is the point in the ocean that lies farthest from any coastline on Earth. That point is Point Nemo. Its name comes from Captain Nemo, the fictional submarine commander created by Jules Verne in the novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Seas. In Latin, the word Nemo means no one, making the name incredibly appropriate for a location that is farther from humanity than any other place on the planet. The name Point Nemo therefore translates to the point of no one, a poetic description of a place where the presence of human life is almost non-existent. Despite the fact that Earth has been explored for centuries and mapped in increasing detail since the age of sail, Point Nemo was not identified until the late 20th century. This surprising fact highlights how recently modern technology has allowed us to fully understand the geography of our planet. Point Nemo was calculated in 1992 by Croatian-Canadian survey engineer Hrvoje Lukatela, who used satellite mapping data and advanced computer algorithms to determine the most isolated point in the global ocean. By feeding Earth's coastline data into geographic modeling software, Lukatela allowed mathematics to identify the location that was farthest from any landmass. The coordinates that emerged from this analysis were 48 degrees, 52.6 minutes south, 123 degrees, 23.6 minutes west. These numbers pinpoint a place in the South Pacific where no islands, continents or rocky outcrops exist within thousands of kilometers. Unlike Mount Everest, the Mariana Trench, or the Sahara Desert, Point Nemo has no visible landmark that marks its existence. It cannot be seen, touched, or photographed in any meaningful way. It exists purely as a coordinate on a map, surrounded by endless ocean in every direction. The idea that such a significant geographic location remained undiscovered until 1992 is a powerful reminder that even in the modern age, our understanding of Earth continues to evolve. Although Point Nemo is defined by its distance from land, it still has 3 nearest land masses, each located at almost exactly the same distance from the point. These 3 locations form a triangle around the loneliest place on Earth. The closest land areas are Juicy Island in the Pitcairn Islands, Motu Nui near Easter Island, Maha Island off the coast of Antarctica. Each of these land masses lies approximately 2,688 kilometers away from Point Nemo, which means that no matter which direction you travel from the coordinate, the distance to land remains nearly identical. This perfect balance contributes to the extraordinary isolation of the location. To put this into perspective, astronauts aboard the International Space Station orbit the Earth at an average altitude of around 408 kilometers. This means that astronauts in orbit are often closer to Point Nemo than any humans on the surface of the planet. In other words, if you were floating at Point Nemo, the closest human beings might be orbiting above you in space. One might assume that such a remote location in the middle of the Pacific Ocean would be teeming with marine life, given the vastness and biodiversity typically associated with Earth's oceans. Surprisingly, the reality is the exact opposite. Point Nemo lies within the South Pacific Gyre, a massive system of rotating ocean currents that creates one of the most biologically barren regions on Earth. These currents form a giant circular flow that isolates the region from nutrient-rich waters that usually support marine ecosystems. Because nutrients cannot easily enter this region, phytoplankton, the microscopic organisms that form the base of the marine food chain, struggle to survive here. Without plankton, there are fewer fish, fewer predators, and significantly less biodiversity compared to other parts of the ocean. Scientists often refer to this region as an oceanic desert, a place where life exists but in extremely low concentrations. The water here is incredibly clear and deep blue, precisely because so little organic matter exists within it. This lack of life is one of the reasons Point Nemo became the perfect location for an unexpected and unusual human activity. Over time, Point Nemo has gained a second, more mysterious identity. It has become the world's spacecraft cemetery. Space agencies around the world needed a location where old satellites, space stations, and spacecraft could safely re-enter Earth's atmosphere without posing a risk to human life. When large spacecraft fall back to Earth, they do not completely burn up during re-entry. Many pieces survive the intense heat and eventually crash into the surface. Dropping these fragments anywhere near populated regions would be extremely dangerous. Because Point Nemo is so remote and so rarely visited, space agencies determined that it was the safest place on Earth to deliberately crash decommissioned spacecraft. Organizations such as NASA and other international space agencies have used this location for decades to dispose of space hardware. Over 260 spacecraft have been intentionally sent to their final resting place near Point Nemo, including satellites, cargo vehicles, and even entire space stations. The process of sending a spacecraft to Point Nemo is a carefully controlled operation that requires precise calculations and timing. When a satellite or space station reaches the end of its operational life, engineers gradually lower its orbit using onboard thrusters. This controlled descent ensures that the spacecraft re-enters the atmosphere at a specific angle and location. As it falls, friction with the atmosphere causes the structure to heat up to extreme temperatures, often exceeding 1,500 degrees Celsius. Many parts of the spacecraft burn up completely during this fiery descent, but larger and denser components can survive and continue falling toward the ocean. By guiding this descent carefully, engineers ensure that any surviving debris lands safely in the empty waters surrounding Point Nemo. This process transforms the remote ocean into a silent graveyard of humanity's technological achievements. Among the most famous objects to fall near Point Nemo was the Russian space station Mir, which re-entered Earth's atmosphere in 2001 after more than 15 years in orbit. Weighing over 130 tons, Mir was far too large to burn up completely, making a controlled descent essential for safety. As it fell through the atmosphere, fragments of the station scattered across the Pacific Ocean near Point Nemo, marking one of the most dramatic space re-entries in history. This event cemented Point Nemo's reputation as the final destination for some of humanity's most ambitious creations. Somewhere in the South Pacific Ocean, thousands of kilometers from the nearest land, lies a coordinate that represents the ultimate isolation of our planet. No cities, no ships, no people, only endless ocean beneath the open sky. And occasionally, high above, astronauts pass overhead, unknowingly becoming the closest humans to the loneliest place on Earth. This is Point Nemo, the point of no one.